Hey there and welcome. So let's just jump right in. Today we are talking about science fiction, but maybe not in the way you're used to. We're going to explore how this genre is secretly one of the most powerful philosophical tools we've ever created. What if it's all just philosophy with rocket ships? When you hear sci-fi, it's totally normal to picture laser battles and weird-looking aliens. And look, you're not wrong. That stuff is definitely there. But that's just scratching the surface. What we're going to do is peel back that layer and look at the huge, powerful engine that's humming underneath all of it. Because what if the biggest questions we can ask, like, what does it mean to be human? What is consciousness really? Do we actually have free will? What if they're being tackled most creatively, not in some dense, dusty textbook, but in the stories we already love? That's the big idea we're digging into. So here's our game plan. First, we'll trace sci-fi's philosophical roots way back. Then, we'll see how it works as the ultimate thought experiment. After that, we'll dive into its role as a kind of ethics lab, and then get into how entire philosophical worlds are built from the ground up, just with language. And finally, we'll tie it all together to see why this genre is more important right now than maybe ever before. All right, let's get into our first section, a genre of big ideas. This link between big philosophical questions and futuristic stories, it's not new at all. It's actually baked into the very DNA of science fiction. And this quote from Lisa Walters just nails it. Long before science fiction was even a term, philosophers were basically writing it. We're talking about thinkers way back in the Renaissance, like Francis Bacon. His book, The New Atlantis, was all about a utopian society run by science. Or Margaret Cavendish, who wrote The Blazing World, one of the very first sci-fi stories about a portal to another world, which she used to critique her own society. They were using stories to do philosophy. And that history leads us perfectly into our next point. Section 2, the ultimate thought experiment. This, right here, is where science fiction truly becomes an incredible tool for thinking. So, philosophers use these things called thought experiments all the time. They're just little made-up scenarios designed to test a big idea. They're all about asking what if to help us figure out what is. And honestly, what is science fiction if not the most elaborate, immersive what-if machine ever invented? And this is where it gets so cool. Just look at this. We can map these classic philosophical puzzles directly onto some of our favorite sci-fi. Plato's famous cave allegory, the idea that our reality might just be shadows on a wall, that is the Matrix. René Descartes worried that some evil genius could be tricking his senses. Well, that's the entire plot of Inception, right? And the famous trolley problem, that impossible ethical choice, it's the same kind of logic puzzle that Isaac Asimov's robots have to solve over and over again with their 3 laws. But sci-fi doesn't just retell old puzzles, it creates brand new ones, often to deal with the anxieties of our own time. Which brings us to Section 3, Exploring Ethical Frontiers, where the genre basically becomes a laboratory for bioethics. Now, to understand how it does this, we gotta talk about something with a bit of a weird name, the Muraf effect. It's just a fancy term for making familiar things seem strange. You take something we all know, like technology or ethics, and you put it in a bizarre new context. By looking at our world through this kind of distorted lens, we can suddenly see it with fresh eyes. And that's the real power here. These stories become what some philosophers call intuition pumps. They take these massive, abstract, and kind of scary ethical problems like genetic engineering or AI, and they make them feel real and personal. They give us a safe space, like a simulation, to explore our hopes and our fears about the future before we actually have to live it. I mean, this chart is a perfect example. Look how these different books become laser-focused case studies. The Handmaid's Tale, it's an intense exploration of reproductive rights. Never Let Me Go, it forces us into a gut-wrenching conversation about what it means to be human in the face of organ harvesting. The Wind-Up Girl dives headfirst into genetic engineering. Each story builds a world just to test the absolute limits of a moral idea. And the list, it just goes on and on. You've got the social control in Brave New World, the genetic discrimination in the movie Gattaca, and don't even get me started on Black Mirror, which is basically a whole TV series dedicated to our anxieties about AI, privacy, and technology. The genre is constantly building these ethical sandboxes for us to play in. Okay, but sci-fi can do more than just tackle one issue at a time. Sometimes it builds entire societies from the ground up just to make a philosophical point. And that brings us to section 4, building philosophical worlds, where we'll focus on how language itself can be the blueprint for an entire ideology. And the absolute masterclass in this has to be Ursula K. Le Guin's novel, The Dispossessed. She wanted to seriously explore a true anarchist society. But she didn't just describe their politics. No, she went deeper. She invented the very language these people would speak, a language specifically designed to shape their reality. This whole process of inventing a language, it actually has a name, glossoposies. And in Le Guin's hands, it's not just a nerdy exercise, it's a profound philosophical tool. Through her invented language, Pravik, she explores a real linguistic theory, the idea that the language you speak literally shapes how you think. So how did she do it? Well, it's this really elegant 3-step process. First, she started with a core principle. In a true anarchist society, there can be no private property. Step 2, she built an entire language from scratch to reinforce that idea in every single sentence. And the result? A society where the very concept of mine is almost impossible to even think. And this quote shows you just how deep it goes. In Pravik, you avoid possessive words like my, so it's not my hand, it's the hand. The pain is just an objective thing happening to you. It's not yours. It's such a subtle shift, but it's incredibly powerful. This isn't just grammar, it's ideology embedded in every conversation. And when you really look at the details of this language, it's just brilliant. The word for work is the same as the word for play. The worst insults you can say are profiteer or propertarian. There's one gender-neutral term, amar, for everybody, kind of like comrade. And a common thing to tell someone off is don't egoize, as in don't put yourself above the group. Le Guin literally built an entire worldview, one word at a time. Okay, let's bring it all home. In our final section, we're asking the big question. Why does any of this matter? What's the ultimate takeaway? Why is this genre so much more than just simple entertainment? I just love this quote from Kevin Kelly because it says it all, doesn't it? Science fiction is doing the hard, heavy work of philosophy, asking these massive questions about our place in the universe, and it's doing it while also giving us thrilling stories and chase scenes. The philosophy is hiding in plain sight. And the sheer scope of this philosophical playground is just staggering. I mean, think about it. In Solaris, we explore what a truly alien consciousness might be like. In Dune, we're deep in the weeds of free will versus determinism. Slaughterhouse-Five completely shatters our idea of linear time. It is a massive, ongoing conversation about everything, happening across thousands of different worlds and stories. So here's the bottom line. Engaging with these stories is a form of practice. Every book you read, every movie you watch, it adds to what one researcher calls a cognitive reservoir of imagined experiences. It's basically a toolkit for the future. These stories give us the mental and emotional muscles to better handle the complex challenges that are heading our way faster and faster every day. At the end of the day, science fiction isn't just trying to predict the future, it's helping us rehearse for it. It's asking the most urgent philosophical questions about who we are and where we're going. So the only real question left is, are we listening to the answers? Thanks so much for joining me.